Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Plotlines. I'm your host, Connor. And before we start the episode, I'd like to thank you all for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe, and join our Discord if you want to join our community and get a chance to talk to me online. And today's episode is with Dr. Barbara Nicolosi. She is the director of screenwriting programs at Regent University. She was the founder of the globally recognized Act One program, which trains and mentors Christians for Hollywood careers. She wrote the screenplay for the feature film Fatima, which was directed by Marco Pontecorvo and released in August 2020. Dr. Nicolosi has been a Hollywood script analyst, production company executive, and consultant on scores of entertainment and media projects, including The Passion of the Christ. Welcome, Dr. Nicolosi.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's really a pleasure to have you. And you have a very impressive resume, in my opinion.
I'm an old woman, so hopefully I haven't been sitting around. I've been trying to use my time well. So
that's good. I mean, that's a good characteristic of any Catholic, in my opinion.
True.
We don't want to be sitting on our hands.
Yes, we used to say in the convent, in heaven we will rest.
Uh-huh.
So, in other words, not now.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of, you bring it up, being in the convent at one point, so that's sort of a very striking thing to me. So how did you go from convent to Hollywood?
Yeah, I guess I was always a writer, and I remember, I think I got my first writing award when I was in the 5th grade. I remember it was some kind of state contest, but I had already written several like play monologue things. And the first one I remember performing was in the 3rd grade. And by the time I was in the 8th grade, I was well established as the one who wrote the skits, for school, and like the nuns knew I could do that. And so I was always called on to do that. And then I was in drama all through high school and college. And then when I became a nun, I got delegated to do the entertainment for the community. And so I did that for 9 years, writing skits for nuns, and they're a tough audience, the nuns are. So you just have to be funny, you can't be off color in any way, and so anyway, when I left the convent, it was the only like marketable skill I had besides working in a Catholic bookstore, which is what we did. And I didn't want to do that anymore. So I threw my hat in the ring, and I got into a philosophy of literature and a PhD program in philosophy and literature at UD. That was going to be a free ride for me. But then I just kind of as a lark sent off an application to Northwestern, where I got in their film program, which at the time was, I think it was the number 4 film school. And I had no help there. It was going to cost me a fortune. I didn't know anybody, and I had no idea what one did with a film degree. And yet, that's where I ended up going. And so, I found myself in the middle of all these, kind of ravenous, serious young people trying to be filmmakers. And there I was, just fresh out of the convent. And so anyway, it was kind of interesting, but I really doubled down and learned as much as I could fast. And then actually got a job before I even got out of graduate school. I sent a letter to a producer, and then I was Father Kaiser at Paulus Productions, and he offered me a job. And then there it was, I got an invitation out to Hollywood. And so I spent the next 23 years there. I thought I was going to be a screenwriter, but I launched as a development executive for him. And then that kind of set me in that the other side of the table thing. And my own writing kind of got sidelined, kept getting sidelined over and over. When I started Act One, it got sidelined again. But finally, after about 8 years, I got offered a screenplay. And then after that, I got like 10 screenplays that I wrote. So anyway, I'm not sure how to account for my journey. It wasn't planned by me at all. It wasn't something that I, in any sense, wanted to do when I was a child. I didn't even know being a screenwriter I was never even conscious of that, as a vocation. I thought I was going to be a lawyer. So, and then I ended up as a nun, right? But anyway, so, yeah, I think when doors open in front of you, and if they're good or neutral, I think go through them. That's been my kind of career strategy. I think we spend a lot of time banging our heads on walls, brick walls, trying to make a door, where there's a door wide open right next door, right there. And but we just don't necessarily recognize it, so I think people tell me a lot. It must have taken a lot of courage to go out there. And I don't know, I wasn't conscious of that. I was conscious of, I really didn't know where to go, and someone offered me a job, and so, okay, I can do that, and so one thing led to another. But I think it served me well that I kind of wasn't planning, so I was open to a lot of things that got thrown at me. Would you like to be part of this? I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do that, and so I never told my boss no matter what he brought into my office, whether it was getting ready for a film festival or designing, supervising the one sheet campaign, which is the key art for a movie, or, supervising the EPK, the electronic press kit for the media. I always just said, yeah, sure, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. And then would learn how to do it and time to do it. And so I think that partly I had gotten that from the convent, the convent. They just had this whole thing of, if God's asking you to do it, he will equip you. And the most bizarre form of that was when I arrived in Los Angeles as a young sister. The superior picked me up at the airport and said, the sister who's been supervising our building project, they were doing a construction project, it was a $4 million building. She said she just got transferred, so you're gonna supervise the construction. Here's a book on reading blueprints. Here's the blueprint for the building. And here's a hard hat. So I was 24, and I was like, okay, I'm supervising a $4 million construction project. But anyway, that served me well.
Yeah. How old were you when you were no longer a sister?
I entered at 20 and I left at 29.
Okay. And then I just think it's hilarious, going from sort of making skits for sisters, where you can't be off color at all. And then you're
going to Hollywood.
You're going to Hollywood where you can't be anything but.
That's very good. Yeah, no, that's premium content is all the rage, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
No, it is funny. That is interesting.
Yeah, it's so wild. That will you explain sort of what a development executive on movies looks like? Because I feel like there's a lot of titles, or there's some titles that people know about, know what it really means, but I don't think that one is one that people really know.
Sure. I mean, development executives kind of can do a lot depending on how big the company is. And my company was very small. So the smaller your company is, the more you would do, which is kind of counterintuitive. But one of my best friends got a job at Warner Brothers in marketing, and all she ever did for 6 years was marketing. I was hired as development executive in this teeny little company called Paul's Productions, and I did everything. I did, just this whole gamut of work. So, but typically a development executive is the doorway into a production company. So you're looking for, I was always looking for projects for the producer to develop, right? And the producer I worked for told me a good producer has 8 projects in the air at one time, at different stages along the journey. And so I was always looking for work for him that he would want to develop and produce. And so the development executive basically gets it ready for the producer. So you work with the writer, or if somebody, you read an article in the magazine, it's like, wow, this might make a good movie. And then you're the one who finds the whose story is this? And then are they a total wacko? Are they somebody you could work with? Is it based on published material? Do I need to hire a writer to kind of give me an outline, or whatever? And then you get it to a certain stage, and you then bring it upstairs or to the producer, and then, then he or she will move it along the next step. The thing about being a development executive is you can only say no. You can't ever say yes, because that yes belongs to the producer, the principal. And most people came in my office pitching didn't know that. They always just assumed I could say yes, but you can say, hold on, I'm going to talk to my boss about it. Like that's the most you can say. So, but anyway, yeah. So it was fun work. I took pitches from writers for maybe 2 or 3 days a week. I would have writers come in and pitch me their script ideas or the scripts they had written or whatever, and then we did a lot of meetings on projects in various stages. I did a lot of work securing rights and kind of doing preliminary investigations to pitch, preparing pitches, because we didn't have financing at our production company. Most production companies don't. You get the project ready, and then in those days you would bring them to the studio.
Mm-hmm.
And whichever studio you could get your foot in the door and that you had a relationship with, and then you say, okay, we want to make this movie in concert with Universal, and so nowadays the studios don't have any money. So basically they're basically only in the business of kind of distribution. They still have they're the main way in for that. So you have to go into, if you do get into the studio, it's after you've put together usually the whole package, that the main actors are attached, the financing is attached, the foreign has been sold, and it's like, okay, we have this movie, we have a script, we have these people want to be in it, we've got the budget about 3/4 of the way, would you, Warner Brothers, like to distribute it? It's like that now. So it's a much more labor intensive thing right now. There's no money in Hollywood anymore.
What kind of films and what kind of writers slash directors sort of came through your production company, or the one you worked for?
Our production company, the production company, actually, he was the boss, the guy I worked for, Father Kaiser, had also founded a thing called the Humanitas Prize, which gave a lot of money every year to the best work, the best screenplays that were written both for television and movies. And so because of that, he had relationships with, top people. And so, yeah, I've sat in the offices with him, and he was deaf. My boss was really deaf. So he would bring me to meetings and he would read lips, but a lot of the times he would miss stuff. And I could tell if he was missing something, and he'd kind of look at me and panic, and then I would jump in and say something, and then afterwards on the way home, I would tell him everything that was said, because he couldn't hear. But it got me in a lot of places that I never would have, like I'm kind of amazed now that I did. Yeah. But yeah, no, I spent 3 days with Martin Sheen. I spent. Yeah, I know, right? I met Brian Keith. I met Melinda Dillon several times. I met these were people that were bigger back then. Melinda Dillon's kind of faded, but she was pretty famous then. But anyway, so at the production company, it depended. I was not working with actors so much at those. I was working with writers and producers, and so. Like I could throw names at you that mean something in Hollywood that don't really mean, most people don't know screenwriters or producers at all. Everybody just knows actors. It was just sad.
Some people know directors. I feel like directors have some pull.
Yeah, that's true. They do. That's true. But again, as the development executive, that was kind of beyond my scope.
Okay.
I would get it ready, and then if the producer took it, then he would then work with the next, with the creative talent. So yeah. But then what happened was I moved into producing while I was working for him, and so that expanded my role. And there's all kinds of producers. There's creative producers. There's line producers. There's the technical people. There's executive producers, which are the people really who get the money together and don't really have that much of a creative role. So I've done creative producing, but I'm not a technical person. I've never done line producing. So anyway.
Gotcha. Did you say your boss was Father Kaiser? That was his name?
Yes. Yeah. Elwood Kaiser. Mm-hmm.
Was he a priest?
Yeah, he was a Paulist priest. And
interesting.
His, I guess his big claim to fame was he produced a series called the Insight series for many years, which was a TV show that was like a half-hour TV show, kind of like what would be like like Twilight Zone, only spiritual kind of, and so, yeah, he gave a lot of Hollywood names their start. So that was like his big, he won 7 Emmys for that show. His big film was called Romero, which was about, starred Raul Julia. It was about the Archbishop Romero that was assassinated in El Salvador. And that was his big feature. Then he made one on Dorothy Day, which is when I started with him. It was called Entertaining Angels. And that's Martin Sheen worked on that. That's why I met Martin. But anyway, yeah, he was a priest who came to Hollywood to be a missionary and ended up becoming a producer and becoming very much a Hollywood animal. So it was a very interesting thing for me to kind of watch firsthand somebody who, had originally wanted to do good in the world and then had kind of devolved into, I just want to be somebody that everybody in Hollywood is giving accolades to and everything like that. And so I know that's pretty harsh to say, the man's dead,
Yeah.
but he really, there was very little of the priest left of him really when I was working for him. In fact, I remember once he was screwing me out of a script that I wrote, and he co-opted it and then sold it to the writers. They sold it to himself and then told the Writers Guild that he had written it and he hadn't. And I said to him, how can you do this thing? And he looked at me and he goes, I'm no different than any producer in this town. And I was like, well, you should be. You're a priest, right? But and again, I don't think he was a bad man, but Hollywood is a very powerful drug. And the entertainment industry is a very powerful drug. And in people, he taught me a lot of very good things. And he used to call that the Hollywood thing. And he used to say to me, be careful of the Hollywood thing. And I realized after a while that he was conscious of it because he was fighting that battle himself. But in the beginning, I didn't, I thought he was not. But anyway, I think that the Hollywood thing is to begin to see people as means instead of ends to your own glamorizing, your own becoming somebody in that town.
Which is hilarious because that's all the actors these days talk about, not using people as means. I mean, they're notorious for just grandstanding about something or other that doesn't have to do with Hollywood that they have no control over, but
Yeah.
And
actors are actors and they're not the most, as a rule. Now there's some that are exceptions and I've met a few, but for the most part, I found them to be kind of lovely. These are people who read other people's words for a living, right? They recite other people's words for a living. This is not the place you go if you have tremendously creative thoughts on your own. If you have an awful lot to say, the smartest people can't stay long as actors. They end up being in producing because, actors basically are meant to be a blank page, and the blanker, the better. Right. Yeah. Because then they can take on the character. So anyway, I never get too hard on them. Most of them were very kind of ridiculous. And I say that without and really not being snotty. I'm just saying that a lot of them were, they're coming out of a lot of them very needy kind of place where they're very shy and reticent, and then being on stage for them was a way to be present, and so that kind of person kind of gravitates towards acting, and that these are the people that we then kind of make something of. So I think the thing you're talking about, the virtue signaling thing, part of that is it's so big among the actors because they know they don't really have a lot going on interiorly, right? And so this is a way to kind of make up for that,
I guess.
And again, I know that sounds pretty harsh, but I don't mean it in a condescending way, because I could not do what actors do. The idea of embodying and fleshing out, and doing this unbelievable imitation of life that has some so much subtext to it. And and like for me, I'm lucky if I can recite a line, my lines, but the idea of interacting with props and other actors, it is a very hard thing to do.
Yeah. No,
But
it's definitely a difficult job. I can only imagine it. I think it's if the job stuck sort of in its own lane, sort of, I think we would value actors, in a sort of more realistic way
yeah.
than currently. I mean, C.S. Lewis said that if there's no longer a royalty to honor, then then the people will start worshiping actors and I think like um, prostitutes and such. Like, it's just like if there's nobody in a sense, or no office worthy of admiration, then people want to admire something.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that, that's true. I think what drives a lot of our fascination with the celebrities and see, again, I think the reason they get involved in causes is because they're getting all this adulation thrown on them, and they know that personally they don't really have much to do. Like, why do all millions of people know my name and millions of people want to know who I'm dating? I have to have something about me that's actually serious. And so I take on a cause, and that gives me a legitimate, thing, because myself, I'm really just, somebody who's reciting words that somebody else wrote for me. I think that the thing for us is the artist who is able to move us emotionally, who touches our hearts and makes us feel that we're not alone, as Lewis says, right? We read to know we're not alone. And I think the arts in general are that, one of the effects of the arts is you go, oh, I'm not alone. Somebody else understands, or somebody else sees what I see. And when you experience that, the tendency is to want to grab that person who has done that for you, right? And it's like, oh, you've taken me out of my isolation. But with actors, they're not really the ones who've done that. It's really the writers. And I say that as a writer, it's the writers, the directors, the actors are part of it, but they're the face of it. So they're the ones who get all of the kind of fascination thrown at them, and it breaks them a lot. I mean, it really does. It's like, I watched that happen with Mel on The Passion, right? The Christian community turned him into a little, the second coming of Christ, and it broke him. He was not able to stand up and be the saint that the people of God suddenly made him. He was an artist. He was a great artist, and he had a tremendous, blessed project that I think is the greatest work of sacred cinema that's ever been made. Having said that, he's still kind of ridiculous as just a person. When he's not making movies, what has he got? So, but I watched people go crazy in the church for him, and completely treat him like he was some kind of a demigod.
I mean, I wasn't really conscious at the time, I don't think, obviously, when The Passion came out. So I don't really know, like, did Mel Gibson like sort of play to that population? Like, because I can't imagine that in any sense. Like, there's one thing to be in like a Hollywood carpet, and stuff like that, but to be in some sort of like Christian atmosphere.
Yeah. I mean, he did, because he needed them to turn out for the movie.
Okay.
In a similar way, I saw Scorsese do it with Silence, where he was going around meeting with all the pastors, telling them that he'd had a conversion, making this movie, what a joke, the conversion ended as soon as the film bombed, but I think Mel was not so cynical as that. But I think he was completely caught off guard by, every Catholic church in America or in the Western Hemisphere inviting him to speak at their confirmation, or can you pay for our production of this, can you, we're making a movie about, the rosary. Can you make that movie, or this saint needs to be done? Like, I mean, he was, I think it's crazy. And the reason I can say that is because I kind of slipped into the orbit accidentally. I saw The Passion in Rough Cut and I gave notes on it. And then I went home and I blogged about it. And they had meant to make me sign a non-disclosure, but I missed that getting passed out. And so, yeah, I missed it. And then I left early. And so
Did you
I didn't
know
even
you were
know
supposed
about
to?
it.
Oh yeah, you didn't know? You didn't
No,
know?
I didn't even know. And I really got close to being sued, they told me the next day, but then they were really happy with what I wrote. But anyway, I went home and I wrote a blog called I Saw the Passion. And if you Google it, you can find it, right? And it's like me basically saying, okay, everybody's heard this movie's anti-Semitic. That's bullshit. It's not, and so this is what I saw. And I was very careful not to reveal, secrets of how the movie is going to end or what it was going to do. But I definitely said this is going to be the greatest work of sacred cinema that's ever been made. And anyway, the next morning, I just shot off the blog, and I went to bed. And the next morning, I had like 40 phone calls on my voice message from France, from Australia, from like every journalist, every entertainment journalist. And I had 40,000 hits overnight on the blog, and that just kept multiplying and multiplying, and finally it hit 1 million.
Yeah.
And then people just sending me, here's my son wants to be a composer in the movies. Here's his album. My daughter wants to be an actor in Mel's movies. Can you? Here's and I was just deluged with it. And I realized, man, what must have been like to be on his end?
Yeah.
I was just a teeny little person on the side, and I had attracted all this stuff. So anyway, that is very disgusting to me, that we Christians are just as bad being kind of gobsmacked by celebrities as pagans are.
Yeah.
We should know better. And yet, I just gave a speech recently to a church up in New England, and somebody basically asked me, I talked all about beauty and art and the church and everything. And the question I got was like, do you know any famous people? And it's kind of like, what is that?
My
why
bad. Didn't I do that?
You kind of did, but it's all right. I mean,
my bad.
That's all right. I mean, we're part of our era, we're part of our age, but I think one of the reasons I have relationships with people in the business is because I didn't ever treat them like that. Like, in fact, this is funny. Not long ago, there was our magazine that was doing a story on me, and they wanted pictures of my time in Hollywood with famous people. And I realized I didn't have any. I didn't have any. I had like 2 pictures. I have one with Moira Kelly, who was in the movie called The Cutting Edge, and she played Dorothy Day, and we became friends.
Oh, she did?
Yeah.
I've only seen her on The West Wing.
Okay, yeah, she was on West Wing.
Yeah.
She was on One Tree Hill. But her great film is called The Cutting Edge. It's a cult film from the 80s. You've got to watch it. It's great. She was in Chaplin too. But anyway, she spent a few days, in my office doing foreign press, and so we became friends. But I think other than her, I don't have picture with Patty Heaton. I don't have pictures with Holly Hunter. I don't have pictures with Helen Hunt. I don't have pictures with Martin Sheen. I don't have pictures with Mel. Any of these kind of people that I worked with enough that I could have definitely. But I just didn't want them ever to feel like they were a thing, to me. And this is a reason why I think they called me. This is why these, a lot of them will take my calls, and because I didn't treat them like that,
Yeah.
And I don't think that's any merit of mine. I think it came from being a nun for 10 years. We saw everyone as someone we're here to help. And that was kind of ingrained in me.
Yeah.
So.
For most people, I don't think having a picture with somebody is like putting them on a pedestal. But I understand that if you're in Hollywood, that almost.
Yeah, they'll see anybody famous. It's like, oh, can I, I don't know, like, and this, and it's just like that reduces the person to wow, you're proof that I'm somebody, I got to stand next to you and take a selfie with you,
Yeah.
so it does it, I mean, and the stars, they'll do it. They know that that's, that's part of the reason they're getting paid the big bucks. Having said that, I wish that we Christians were different, I mean,
Yeah.
the number one request I still get probably from churches, Catholic organizations is, can you get us to Jim Caviezel? Can you get us to Mel? Can you get us to, and it's kind of just like, no, why would I do that? Why would I do that? And
Yeah.
and first of all, actors are notoriously bad speakers, but
Jim seems pretty good.
Hmm?
Jim Caviezel seems pretty good.
Oh,
No, I heard one of his. I thought it was good.
mhm.
Disagree.
Excuse me, Jim's a loose cannon. He's a very sweet man, and I love him. That he can be a loose cannon,
Yeah.
so that's all I'm
Makes
gonna
sense.
say.
Okay. But yeah, so I just, when I meant about like taking pictures, I mean, if you're like, I think the first your instincts when you meet somebody should not be, I want a picture with you. It should be, I want to get to know you. Can I,
Yeah.
like, let's talk. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's my instinct with every person I meet that I want to talk to, or that I have any I don't know. Most people I don't come across that I know anything about anyways. So, you
No,
can,
it's good.
it's
And
not the
that's what it should be. It should be, I'm interested in you, as opposed to now I'm going to turn you into some symbol that I'm somebody by,
Yeah.
by using your celebrity, and like, oh, wow. So anyway, I wish I could say I saw Christians act differently around celebrities, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I saw
Yeah.
them, pander to them and make a big deal of them and everything, where, they should just be treated like normal people,
Yeah.
especially by the church.
Definitely.
Mhm.
It seems just a little bit on Mel at the moment. He seems like he's sort of has one foot or some sort, maybe one toe in the Catholic world still. Is
I
that
mean,
just my
he's been all over the map, and, I don't know where he is, frankly. I mean,
Sure.
he's living with another girlfriend and has kids out of wedlock, and, and I mean, he's an actor,
Sure.
he's a brilliant artist, but it's like he kind of is a little screwed up, and but he made $600 million on his movie, and that would screw up anybody. I mean, most of us couldn't handle a third of that without losing our minds, and so anyway.
Isn't the sequel supposed to be made, or
Yeah, Randall Wallace was supposed to write the sequel, and I mean, I think one of the issues is they waited too long, and
Sure.
it's been, let's see, 2004, 18 years. So Jim has really aged out, going to say, wow, dying and rising from the dead really did a job on Jesus,
He aged him
it's like
up.
he's 20 years older, and so I don't know what they're going to do about that. I mean, you can try all the soft focus lenses you want, and he doesn't look at all like he did then, so that's a problem. I mean, they could certainly, recast the part, but it's just kind of iconic the way he did it, so
That would be
anyway,
rough. Yeah.
I was disappointed when I heard Randall Wallace was going to do the script instead of Ben Fitzgerald wrote the original script, The Passion, and he and Mel had a falling out, but Ben was Flannery O'Connor's godchild,
Oh, wow.
his father was a brilliant Renaissance man, and Ben was raised in Italy, and is very much, a poet. So much of the poetry, the passion was Ben's style. Randall, I love him, but he's an evangelical.
Oh.
He wrote movies like, I mean, yeah, God love him. I mean, I love evangelicals too, but they're
Sure.
not
The best writers.
good at visual imagery.
Yeah.
They're very on the nose, and so like Randall's movies were, what did he write? The one that's a great example is the one of Pearl Harbor. Okay, this is it is what it is, and not a great film. Michael Bay, of course, you had to serve that, and he was serving that. But he wrote Braveheart, which
Oh, he
people
did.
talk
Yeah.
about. Yeah, I mean, okay, it's a solid film. I wasn't as crazy for it as a lot of people were, but I think Randall is a solid writer.
Hmm.
Now he's a director, but I don't know that he could ever produce a work like The Passion. So
What
when I heard he was on The Resurrection, I was like, we'll see.
what is his name's the other guy's name is Ben. What's his
Ben Fitzgerald.
Ben Fitzgerald? What else? What has he done?
I mean, he's only
Otherwise,
made 2 movies that have gone all the way. One of them
okay.
was Wise Blood with John Huston, and the other one was The Passion of the Christ.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just his background being the godchild of Flannery O'Connor.
Yeah, right. He
Yeah.
and I worked together for 2 years on a prequel to The Passion called Mary, Mother of the Christ.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. I couldn't find anything about it except for the cast.
It was bought out by a crazy woman, and then she held on to it for 2 years or more than that probably. And then she sold it to the Metanoia boys, the guys who did, they made a movie called Bella, which was kind of uneven pro-life movie from a few decades ago. And then they made one called Little Boy about, it was just bizarre. But anyway, they're desperate to become big Catholic filmmakers, and whatever. I like Eduardo. He's the actor in the 3. And then there's a lawyer, and then there's a kind of director guy. But anyway,
a crazy woman bought out.
Yeah. She was a woman who only bought it. She wasn't a believer in any sense. She only bought it because the provenance to The Passion, right? Ben had written The Passion, and she's just like, okay, Passion made $600 million. I want a piece of that. And she had no kind of moral compass, or let me say this, she had no spiritual, in terms of Catholicism or Christianity. She had nothing in that area.
Was it filmed?
No, it wasn't.
No, okay.
She bought the script.
Then why, if I look online, why does it have like actors attached but nothing like?
Yeah, I mean, does it now? I mean,
it had at least like Julia Ormond and others.
Yeah, there was at various points, Pacino was attached
Yeah.
a while, and then who else? I mean, they that's part of packaging a movie is you get actors attached, and then they can only be attached for so long, and then they get other work, and while you're trying to assemble the cast, like it's kind of such a miracle to get them all at the same time, to be free. So
I can't believe that movie didn't get, it's a shame that movie didn't get made,
It is, because it was a beautiful script. The original script was stunning. But
do you still like have access to it just so you can read?
Probably because they never paid me.
They never paid you?
They never paid me. They were supposed to pay me for the script, and they never did.
Wait, I thought did you and Ben work together on it, or what was?
Ben and I worked together, and Ben didn't pay me, and then he was like, the next one is going to pay you, and then she never paid me. She paid me to do rewrites, but she never paid me for the script, the initial. And then the Metanoia boys bought it out, and they met with me right away and told me we're going to pay you in 2 weeks, and that was like 10 years ago.
Oh my!
So yeah, I know, right? So it's funny when it's a movie about the Blessed Mother, and you're like screwing the writer out of their pay, but too bad. They then told me they rewrote the script completely. So who knows what it is now, but probably I could get it back, because there is a thing in the Writers Guild. If so long has gone by, your script will revert to you if it hasn't been produced. So in this case, you normally have to pay back what they paid you for it, but they didn't pay me.
They didn't pay you.
Yeah, and I don't think Ben wants anything to do with it. So yeah, that would be interesting.
Maybe you should look into that if
yes, probably today. Yeah.
Or not. Whatever works.
Yeah.
But so what inspired you sort of in movies? Sort of what makes you want to what makes you want to be a screenwriter?
Sure. Well, I'm good at it. Flannery O'Connor has the line, the only answer that makes any sense to why are you a writer is because I'm good at it, and again, I don't really have any other marketable skills. But I am a good writer, and screenwriting is the most complex kind of writing you can do. It's the highest level because it is the blueprint for a multi-layered art form, right? So cinema is a composite of the four great art forms. So, performance theater, acting, story, narrative, composition, painting, and then music. So all four of those are in a movie, and that's what gives it such a kind of addictive power, because all four of those art forms bring their own power to move us emotionally and to kind of take us out of our isolation. So you talk a movie, it's got 4 times the power. So people tell me all the time, I love the movies. It's like, of course you do. How could you help yourself, right?
Yeah.
But what I think, personally, I just love I love the thing of watching a character having an access to a person that movies give you. They take you way past the boundaries that we normally encounter when we come to know someone. And now you can be that fly on the wall. You can watch someone process their errors, their mistakes, their folly, as Aristotle would have it. You can watch the good ways they process it, the bad ways. You can connect with them, right? So again, I think movies we love because they make us feel we're not alone, and that's that character, that weird thing of the protagonist in a movie becoming the substitutionary thing for the audience, for the viewer, right? I am going through this with this person. They would like me. We would be very good friends. If Indiana Jones was here, he and I would get along. And
Totally.
and right, that idea of that illusion that's created that the protagonist would like you, and you get each other. And so I care about this person. I'm involved in their journey, and that takes me out of my isolation. So when it's done well, it's just tremendously fun, and kind of affirms you in your nature. When you're talking a brilliant film where it's just they're handling all of the levels, there's like at least 7 levels of communication going on in a movie at any given moment at the same time, right? So
Yeah.
so what you're seeing visually is one layer of information. The ambient sound, which you're hearing in the background, is another layer. The music is adding another layer. The style, like the directorial style of performance, is another layer. The actual narrative choices is another layer, right? Then there's thematic meaning kind of imbued. And then there's visual imagery happening, so you go at any given moment, the movie is throwing at you 7 different meanings, and you're tapping into 1 or 2 of them. I mean, the audience is very sophisticated now. They're tapping into things that they're not even consciously aware of. Having said that, usually most people miss half of what's coming at them in the movie because they just can't process that much. So that's why you go back a good movie and you watch it over and over and over again. And it's like, oh, I didn't hear that ambient sound cue in the background. Oh, I didn't realize there's a clock on her desk while she's talking about this, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's such a crazy complex medium, and you always get that sense when you watch after a movie and watch the credits run for 10 to 15 minutes sometimes. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy, just names of people that worked on this project.
Hey, and in Marvel movies, they can get people to stay for the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hundreds of names, hundreds of artists, hundreds of technicians, hundreds of talented people putting their flourish in this movie. And so it just makes it such a high level, complex narrative form. And narrative is another key, right? We love a story. We just do. This
Yeah.
has been the secret of the American cinema tradition since D.W. Griffith. Europe kind of stubbornly resisted this. Europe films went with the art, the painting, visual art medium. That kind of, you had parallels, what was going on in the painting world, and the movies imitated that.
Yeah, interesting. So more like on the artistic side of things.
Exactly.
While
I think they frankly just didn't have the money to do what Hollywood was doing, so they kind of said that, right? But that's how you look at European cinema, especially. It's connected to the painting world. And ours was connected right away to theater and story.
Yeah.
Griffith says in 1915 that the movies should do on the screen what Charles Dickens did on the page.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Novels, like just the detailed. I mean, in a sense, like, you could say, like, in a sense, theater is like movies, but like, but TV is like books, because it's longer. Would that make sense?
Well, I suppose so. I think television is about character as a rule, right? Character. So the point of a movie is what we call the arc of transformation, where you have 2 hours, give or take, to effectuate a irrevocable change in a person. Right. And you're going to basically, 10, 12 minute sequences, whatever, you're going to have a person learn something, for good or ill. They're going to change. They're going to be a different person at the end of those 2 hours than they were. In television, you don't want them to change that fast, because that's the whole show. Is, think about the kind of classic one that changed series was Tony Soprano, right? The Sopranos. And it's like the shtick of that show was, this is a mob boss who's really good at being a gangster, but he's suffering from all this existential angst, such that he sees a therapist. And so you couldn't fix Tony Soprano, or the show would have been over.
Yeah.
And so, but that's what television does, right? It takes somebody, we understand their brokenness, and we find it relatable, and then we just watch them in situation after situation after situation. And now the contemporary series definitely have accelerated the arc of transformation. They're like, it's now that by the end of every season, they've made some kind of a change, and it's like within 5 years, they really do kind of really change. But that's relatively new in television, though, and it's because the audience is I think more impatient. Also, we have the binge watching thing now, where people just want to watch, 10 hours in a row. And so it tends towards, this has to go somewhere, it's created that way. But anyway, I think I wouldn't say it makes it more like a novel. I would just say the television is really, really character study in its best manifestations. And even in comedy, like look at The Office, right? This is a kind of brooding over different kinds of people in a way that's more or less insightful. But anyway, so yeah, I think that's what TV is. So when a TV show doesn't deliver depth about people, psychological depth, it's just the audience gets bored.
Yeah, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me that Catholicism had a much greater influence in old Hollywood. Is that true, or am I missing the boat?
I don't know. There was a thing called the Hays Office, right? The Hays Code, which was compiled at the request of the studio bosses in the early 30s. So basically, the situation was that all of the studios were run by immigrant Jews who had fled the old world. And they fled to this country with a sense of gratitude. They wanted very much to give Americans what Americans would find palatable. And so they approached the church, give us guidelines for how to use this medium, because there was a lot of stuff going on in the 20s in cinema, which was like, there was no MPAA, it's like the nudity and, and whatever, and
Yeah.
so the audience kind of, there was moments of shock. And so the Hays Code came out of that. And that was the list of things you could say or do, things you could show or not. And that was the production code until, like, I don't know, 68, I think, when it came down. And the question is, okay, did that give the church more authority in the industry? I don't know. I mean, I think that gave the industry parameters. Of course, they were always messing with them, and so. But I mean, I don't know if there was ever. It was never. See, Hollywood has always been dominated in the golden age. It was completely dominated by Jewish immigrants.
Okay.
So it wasn't like the church they were going to church and getting directions from their pastor.
Wasn't there a lot of Catholic directors though?
There's a few. I mean, there's as many now as then, but maybe they were a little more devout. Frank Capra, who was a Nicolosi, by the way, his grandmother was a Nicolosi.
Oh,
yeah, I know, right?
Is there is that a blood relation or
we all come from a little village called Aseriao on Sicily, so we're probably related somewhere back there.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't claim any direct line, but his grandmother was a Nicolosi. So, but I think, I mean, I don't know. I think that's one of the ing that you hear a lot in conservative church circles, that the church used to be, because look at Bing Crosby and Going My Way, and I mean, all right, how many movies are we talking here? There wasn't a tremendous amount, but I don't know. I think maybe in the sense that the whole culture was more respectful of the church back in the 40s and 50s, that made the church feel differently, but the whole sexual revolution changed everything.
Yeah.
Changed the church, it changed America, it changed the entertainment industry, it changed the arts, it's changed everything, changed politics, so it doesn't, I don't know if I believe that, if there was ever really a time when the church had kind of more influence. My sense of, since I've been in this, which is I started talking to the church about this back in 1996. The church has been completely uninterested in actually having any kind of influential presence in this industry.
Yeah, I mean, Mel said that he was told no by the USCCB for promoting the Passion.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was funny. I was writing for Ligorian magazine when the Passion came out before, and when I saw it, I told them, I'm going to write a whole thing on the Passion, and they were like, "Oh no, we're going to ignore that movie because Mel Gibson's a Seventh Adventist, and we don't want to have anything to do with anti-Semitism and all this stuff." And I was like, "This is going to be the greatest work of sacred cinema ever, and you're going to ignore it?" So I quit my job writing for Ligorian. And then I called up the National Catholic Register, which was owned by the Legion of Christ at the time. But I talked to a guy named Tom Hoops, who I had met, and I was like, I'm available. Do you want me to write for you? And he was like, yeah. So then I wrote for the National Catholic Register for several years. But that move was precipitated by the fact that Ligorian, the biggest Catholic family magazine in the country, was going to ignore the Passion.
Wow.
Yeah. But I think, I've just been very impressed at the lack of interest in having any kind of meaningful voice in this medium in the church.
Yeah.
Any kind of voice.
Or one of the people I really like, even though he's, not he's not Catholic, is Andrew Clavin. And how he seems to want people to, Christians just in general, to be involved in creativity and creating movies, creating books, having a space in the creative world. And I mean, other than you, I don't really feel there's that many Catholics that are really driving that.
Well, there are a lot of Catholics there. I mean, there's people trying, but there's not a lot of people seriously, thoughtfully saying, okay, let's get better and better at this. What happens is some Catholic gets a fistful of cash and blows it all on their passion project, and it's bad.
Yeah.
So what we need is the $10 billion solution, which would be a studio. And
Yes.
and then a studio that could have a slate of losers, right? Because 8 out of 10 movies fail financially. We don't have the money to fail.
Yes.
So we fail at everything, And then the other thing is, the average studio movie is like $40 million. It's come down a little bit, but it's like $40 million. The average Christian movie is like $2 million. So we're not even playing in the same arena. Now, the Fatima movie, I wrote that movie in 2008. The idea was let's have this movie out for the 100th anniversary of Fatima a couple of years before. But we must have pitched it to 200 qualified Catholic investors, and none of them invested in the movie. They just didn't have the value. Right?
Yeah.
And so it was like we were begging them, and we had to keep shrinking the budget because we couldn't get any money to make the movie. And to me, this is pathetic. One of the first real investors in the movie was a Jewish guy out of Chicago who wasn't even a believer, but he liked the story of the girl and her mother. And then the movie got picked up in Spain by Frida Torres Blanco, who had made Pan's Labyrinth, and she liked the screenplay, not because she was a believer, she's a kind of a communist, but she liked the shrine. The Europeans are weirdly proud of the Fatima shrine and what it means in Europe.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, well, we should make this movie as this is what the shrine is, the story of the shrine. So unfortunately, we had to take these, continental communists and their money, and then they really dumbed down the script a lot. The director said to me, Barbara, we need to lose everything in this movie that is too Catholic. It's a movie about a Marian apparition. How can you take out, and I said, what are you talking about? What's too Catholic? And he goes, well, for example, this word sinner, we need to lose this word. Can you imagine Our Lady Fatima without that?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Mary came down from heaven and went, y'all are doing great, But
it would lose all the heart too. There wouldn't be any point.
I mean, it broke my heart. I ended up having terrible time with the producers because they'd wanted to make the movie for so long, and we'd been in this journey forever. And so finally it was just like, you know what, we're just going to do it. We just want to get it done. But that was because the church did not play any meaningful part in getting that movie going. It had no meaningful part.
Well, the one, I had a friend who had a real frustration with that Edison quote at the end of the movie. Or the one that basically says, I don't know, it's basically like you can believe in miracles, but it alludes to basically miracles aren't real, or you can believe them or not, or something.
Yeah, well,
like
the director was ambivalent. He told me he didn't believe the story. He told me he thought it was the fantasy of children that was well-meaning and just to kind of cope with the war and the times. And then the church co-opted it when it saw it could make money off of it. So this is the director that the
Wonderful.
Catholic producers put in charge of the script. Now, Marco, I think, is talented. I think he has a good visual. He's a cinematographer, right? He comes out of Game of Thrones. He was the cinematographer for them. But so he's not a bad guy. He's a talented filmmaker. I don't think he's that great a director. I know when I was working with him, he was very much more interested in the visuals frame by frame than he was the arc of transformation. Sure. What's the story here? And I kept saying that, this is, what is it? And he would say, I see a wagon wheel and then the sun. And then you cut between, the two circles. And I'm like, what? But anyway, so I think I think I'm not proud of the film. I think that, it's a solid film. I think
Very good, very good.
Thank you. For a faith-based film, it's not moronic or
No.
embarrassing. It's not cheap or shoddy looking.
And that's impressive to do anyways.
Yeah, it is.
With a faith-based film.
We had a solid 64-point rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which for a faith-based film is, they average 18 points, so for us to be 64, that was huge. Having said that, if the Catholics had supported the project in real ways, we wouldn't have had to go that route.
Was the Edison quote a part of the script, or is it addition?
No, they added that after. But again, the director said to me at one point, I can't have my friends in the business think I've gotten religion. So he's very, very interested in making it look ambiguous. He said to me, I think it is clear that Lucia thought she saw the Blessed Mother, right? The Mary, but I don't know that she really did. So that's what we're going to do in the movie. So the little girl thinks she's seeing this. And so it's left up to the audience what you think. That's why The Miracle of the Sun was so tremendously dumbed down. The scene I wrote was really what really happened, according to the people that were there. And that got really, really short shrift in the movie. And it wasn't a budgetary thing. It was the director didn't want to, he had so calculatedly kept it from being, this is happening.
Wow.
That would have undermined that.
Yeah.
So anyway.
But no, it's a great movie though. Maybe it was just my bias. I didn't think during the movie that anything was ambiguous.
Mm-hmm.
But that might just be my instinctual
you
bias.
went to the movie and filled in. But see, I told them the secret of the Passion was not dumbing down the theology, but pushing it.
Yeah.
With the base audience, if we had delighted the base by giving them, honestly, the original screenplay that was written for the Fatima movie, which really was about the two armies, the army of Mary with her three generals, these little kids, and then the army of Satan, which is with communism. My movie was, this conflict between communism as a secular, spiritless vision of man versus heaven's vision of man. And so that got completely, because most of the Europeans are Marxists, so they didn't like that at all, and I had to, all through my script, the word Marxist was very present. There were Marxists here and Marxists there, and that was actually true, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that all got taken out. It all got taken out. So you just go, okay, I'm not quite sure what this is, but it's okay. I mean, I think the movie makes you go, wow, Mary is a mother. And she's very loving, and it's mysterious how heaven interacts with humanity. I mean, I think you get those things there, but you get a little bit about the Fatima, the actual what happened and what was said, not as much as I would have liked, but I think it's a solid B plus, movie. And for faith-based films, if you're just looking at that realm, I think it's an A. Because they're so bad. Yeah, but that's not a high bar.
Passion of the Christ, does that exceed A plus or what?
I mean, the Passion is the standard.
Yeah, but if you're ranking faith-based movies, and you give Fatima an A, what does that mean for the Passion?
Yeah, right. You're right. Yeah, I mean, to tell you the truth, I don't even like to call the Passion a faith-based film.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean. Yeah, I
mean, it's not, it wasn't made for the faith-based community. It didn't come out of the faith-based community. Mel made the movie as an act of penance for his sins. He said, I want to make the Stations of the Cross in my art form. But he made it as a Hollywood animal, you know? And so, most of the people who worked in the movie were his friends. They were not, this was not, he got the Christian people involved when he needed to sell it.
Wasn't there didn't he have somebody on for theology and stuff like that? Or
they did. They brought in this Jesuit to work with them on the script after and stuff. But honestly, I think that's because he had this vision that he wanted them to speak Aramaic, and
An actual Jesuit, or our standards for Jesuits these days?
actually, I think he was pretty good. I met
Yeah,
him. We were on a panel at one point. I forget his name, but
there are a few
really
out there.
good. Yeah. So anyway, I mean, I think that that it ended up being, coming into the faith-based world that marketed the movie and promoted it and everything, but I think that movie didn't come from that place,
Yeah.
came from Hollywood. Mel was a Hollywood creature.
Mhm.
And maybe that's why it's so different. It's not saddled with all of the kind of problems of the faith-based sector, which is essentially you end up pandering.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this I'm very happy with what we've done today, and I think, I bet there's a lot more that we could talk about, but
Sure.
I don't want to take up too much of your time at the moment.
Okay.
So
Sure.
thank you for coming on, Dr. Nicolosi. It was absolutely pleasure to have
Sure.
you.
Anytime. Thanks
Is
for
there any
having me.
say that again?
Thank you for having me. Oh, thank
No
you.
problem. Is there any place that you want sort of the audience to be sent to, anything to plug?
I mean, I've created a master's program and an MFA in screenwriting that they're both, you can take them either online or on campus at Regent University. And it's the writing program I wished had been available to me when I was starting out. And it's a very smart, tough, comprehensive, and yet imbued with Christian sensibilities of the person, the human person, Christian sense of consequences and the truth and things like that. And so it's not like any other program that's out there. So if you're interested in being a screenwriter, you should check it out. Go to Regent University's website and look at the MFA and MA in screenwriting program. That's what I run right now.
Gotcha. Awesome. Anything else?
No, that's it for now. I mean, I'm
Okay.
working on another movie, but I can't talk about it right now. So
Ooh.
yeah.
Okay. That's exciting.
Mhm.
But again, thank you for coming on, and thank you all for watching. Have
Very
a
good.
wonderful day.
All right. Thank you,
Bye.
Con. Take care. Bye-bye.
Word from our affiliate, Bishop Sheen Rosaries. You've probably worn through the chain of your cheap plastic rosary. Other rosaries simply can't stand up to the wear and tear of everyday life. Bishop Sheen rosaries are made of solid metal beads and paracord to withstand any condition, and are backed with a lifetime warranty. Upgrade your rosary to a Bishop Sheen rosary made to fit your lifestyle, or buy one for a friend. Each rosary sold supplies 2 weeks of food for a school kid in Uganda. You use the exclusive link down below to help support our efforts here at Plotlines. The link will take you to sheenrosaries.com. Be sure to use the code Plotlines10.